Welcome, everyone, to Screenfish Radio. I'm so glad you could join us this week. Here we are in Season 8 as we continue on. And so glad you could join us this week as we talk about Dear Evan Hansen, the latest musical to hit the big screen based on the Tony Award-winning play. And this week we brought back, I'd like to say they're old friends, but technically for those of you watching online, we just finished the Movies You Missed series like last week. So most of our team, welcome to Riley, Daniel, and Kat, who disappeared into the background of her blurry Zoom world. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you could join us.
Hello.
Okay.
Try to contain yourself. As may or may not be aware, Dear Evan Hansen, as I said, was based on the Tony Award-winning play, which won Best Musical, Best Score, and Best Lead Actor for Ben Platt. And it tells the story of high school student Evan Hansen, who suffers from social anxiety disorder. Under the advice of his therapist, Evan writes letters to himself with the goal of recognizing the good things in his life, such as his classmate Zoe, on whom he has an enormous crush. But when a fateful encounter with Zoe's brother Connor puts Evan in an awkward position, that self-correspondence provides an irresistible opportunity for deception. Evan concocts a friendship that never existed, constructing a whole new life for himself, one that could come crashing down at any minute. As always, a reminder that this podcast is rated S for spoilers, but I am dying. I know that there are feelings about this film. I am dying to hear from you all what you thought of this representation of Dear Evan Hansen.
Hi.
And go, Riley. He's been waiting for this for a long time.
So I saw the play. Like the first one, not the Broadway one that went to go win Tonys and stuff, but the one that was, I think it was on Mirvish for a little while, but I know I saw it downtown. I saw it then. I have the same feelings as I did now in the fact that like everything about the musical is incredible. Like the writing is really good, the score is really good, the casting for the original play and for the movie, I feel, were really well done as well. But I detest Evan Hansen with just a burning hatred inside of my soul that keeps me warm on December nights. I was actually talking to people about this a little while ago, and I think my biggest problem with Evan Hansen is the amount of people that excuse him by the end of the film. Not even in the film, in the fact that I think the parents should have handled it differently there. I think them just deciding not to share, regardless of whether Evan did or not, I feel like it sort of showed him that he necessarily didn't do anything, what he did wasn't as bad as it was, but also just people in general who watched it. I've talked to a lot of people who are like, oh, well, Evan, he figured out that he did something. No. Okay, yeah, he apologized. Great, wonderful. I don't think that means that we should excuse him for what he did, because he lied to this family for so long about their dead son and then started hooking up with the sister, which I feel like that's not even breaking the bro code at that point. I feel like that's just breaking like moral code of like the world and existing within it. And then the thing is some people are like, okay, he did it to protect the family, like to protect their feelings. I get that at the beginning. But that is all. That is all. That first time that he was like, oh, yeah, we were friends. You know, he wrote on my cast. We hung out a little bit. Sure. Okay. Is it wrong? Yes. But can I see people excusing it? Yes. But it got to the point for me where he was benefiting from this false reality that he had portrayed. And I know I saw it like even in the chat when we were watching it, when, you know, they offered him the college fund, when he started getting famous off of it, when he, you know, was doing the freaking memorial speech for someone that he literally had never met. Like, and he started getting popular at school. He started getting popular online. You could see the change in him. And he started, you know, even lying to people who weren't part of the family when he sent the suicide letter and was like, oh, if we weren't friends, then why would he write a suicide? You wrote that letter, you imbecile. I hate him so much. And it just eats me up about the fact that some people legitimately excuse him for his actions because he apologizes and sings a song and writes another letter where he's like, today we're not lying, so we're okay. Like, what? Anyways, someone else can talk.
Wait, sorry, I gotta hit record. Let's start that again.
Oh my gosh. I would gladly go on that rant again, can I just say? Anyways, someone else can go.
I'm speechless.
I don't like him.
That was worth the price of admission right there.
Riley clearly is a big fan of Evan.
But that's the issue, is the fact that there's nothing else that I dislike about this musical besides Evan. Like, everything else I love.
You've never told a white lie that's gotten a little bit out of control.
I'm not saying that I haven't. So I feel like I haven't to that extent or for like something that bad, but I'm not saying that I haven't, but that's what I was trying to say, like at the beginning, of the fact that the one thing that pisses me off even more is the fact that some people who see this like genuinely excuse Evan's actions because he apologized at the end. I feel like, sure, you can be like, yeah, he learned from it and now he won't do it again, but that doesn't excuse the actions that he did and the impact that he had on this family's life.
I like that you say, and he won't do it again, because when would this ever happen a second?
Evan Hansen 2, the university lie.
No, but like, you know what I mean? Making like a white lie get to this point, right? Because he could have pulled himself out at multiple other points. And I know like he tried, but he didn't really. If he really wanted to pull himself out, he would have, but he got so obsessed with this reality he created for himself that he couldn't, whether he wanted to or not.
Could he have pulled himself out? Look at the reality he was dealing with himself.
I know.
And the fact that his suicide attempt and his abandonment issues and wanting of the perfect family, there's a mental health aspect to that too, right?
There is a mental health aspect, definitely. And I think he touches upon that when he's talking to the family about, like at the end when they find out about like how he created this sort of false reality because, you know, he was sort of projecting the best parts of them on to be able to fix the worst parts of him, which is, you know, valid. But I still think that he could have and should have, I think, but it had to have been a lot earlier in, like right after that first meeting, you know, like that first meeting. I feel like after that, he would have been able to pull himself out. Like when they invited him over for dinner, be like, hey, like, even if you don't want to be like, I never knew your kid, be like, listen, I didn't know your kid that well. Like we hung out like a little bit. So I don't know if I would have a lot to tell. Like even that, I feel like would have been able to pull him out of this situation without like exposing himself completely, but he didn't. And he kept going.
If you were sitting there in his situation, you have these grieving family and all they want is a story about their son and all you want is to be accepted because you haven't been. You literally have zero friends. And this is the most attention that you've got with your overworked mother and
Yeah.
your father who abandoned you.
Yeah.
And you want to, and you see the guilt in his face, and he's like, oh, crud, like I'm stuck. But if you were in that exact position
Yeah.
of sitting in front of someone like that, I don't know if it would be that easy.
Well, I wouldn't sing a song.
Tap dance?
No, but like I get what you mean, but I feel like the fact that Evan, like, even you were saying, like, with the guilt in his, like, you could see that he knew that he was doing something wrong, at least at the beginning. I think before he started to, like, benefit from this, I feel like then he was just kind of doing it for the sake of continuing this rather than having, like, a guilt associated towards it until the letter got leaked, which, can I just say, I think was a fault not on Evan's part about the leak, but the other girl for doing that. Should Evan have shared it with her? No, but it was her fault for leaking it. But I think because he had that guilt, that automatically insinuates that he knows he was doing something wrong. He knows that what he is doing is not right on so many levels. And I feel like if you're one who has had that feeling of, you know, trusting someone and then them just dipping, I feel like he of all people should have known what it would feel like if they found out that he was lying. Someone that they're now he's now the person that they are trusting.
Exactly. Maybe that's why he can't confess, because he knows how bad it would hurt them, and the last thing he wants to do is hurt anyone.
Maybe he shouldn't have started in the first place. Like, I feel like if he knows how it feels, I feel like that should give him more of an incentive to not do it. But I can see your side. I see where you're coming from, but I think I'm coming at it from a different angle of you're being like, you know, he's gone through this, so he doesn't want for, like, to stop to hurt them in the same way. But I feel like
he likes what he's getting. He's benefiting.
Yeah.
He's getting the family. He's getting the girlfriend. He's getting the
with the girlfriend makes me sick. Can I just say? Can I interject there? That makes me.
Girlfriend's sick. A little icky. I'm not gonna lie. The girlfriend gets a little icky.
That song.
It only gets icky because a 40-year-old singing to a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that song that he sings to her, though. I know it was supposed to come off as like this, like, sweet, like, oh, he notices so much about her. Makes him sound like a stalker.
But do you find that it made him sound like a stalker in the movie, or did it made him sound like a stalker in both? Because when I saw it in the Ed Mirvish production, I was like, yeah, it's like kind of like, okay, but it was more sweet. But when you're looking at Ben Platt playing against someone who clearly looks like they're 14, and he clearly looks like he's an over makeuped 40-year-old, that made it super creepy.
That I think added.
He's not 40.
Well, I'm just saying they wanted to make him look younger, but he looked like he had.
Well, okay.
I do think that added to the creepiness factor, but it was still creepy nonetheless.
Okay.
Like.
Okay, time out. Let's steer away from Evil Hansen for a minute. I
thought that was the point of this podcast.
No,
I totally agree with you, Riley. I'm just trying to play like devil's advocate. Like,
I know, and it's pissing me off.
My apologies.
I know you agree. I know you do. The entire time I was arguing with you, my head was like, all that was going through my head was, why am I arguing with Kat? I know we talked about this. I know she agrees with me.
This is the joy of switching to video podcasts. Is Riley's got like this pulsating vein on his forehead that's about to burst.
I don't like Evan Hansen.
But you're gonna get inundated with Evan Hansen merch just dropped off at your house.
That's right.
Just his face, though, nothing else. I support Evan Hansen.
Because I do want to come back to this. This is a great conversation. I do want to, but since it came up, and technically, I mean, none of the rest of us have actually shared our feelings on this play yet. But I do want to address the idea of Ben Platt in the role, because I'd like to know what you honestly think about it. The director, Stephen Chbosky, or however you pronounce his last name, I think it's Chbosky, said he played him. He understands the character. He completely immersed himself in the role in Broadway 7 years ago. So he was 19, 20 when he was doing it before. He was the
47.
only choice. He said he was the only choice. And let's be serious. We have grown up the last 30 years watching shows about teenagers who are 25 in real life. 90210, when we were kids, Gossip Girl isn't that different. They're all playing younger than they actually are. So what did you think of Ben Platt and the controversy surrounding his age? I'm going to throw it to Daniel first, because I want to give Daniel the chance to say something.
I think nowadays it is pretty normal for, like you said, mid-20s, late 20s people playing teenagers. I think what's kind of weird is for me, growing up, watching Disney Channel, Nickelodeon shows, teenagers were played by teenagers for the most part. Hannah Montana, Sunny with a Chance, Wizards of Waverly Place. They were all teenagers. So now looking at it, it's just kind of weird, because it's well, why don't you hire a teenager or somebody who's if you're needing a 16-year-old, go for somebody who's maybe 18 or 19, because I know a lot of shows nowadays involving teenagers touch upon heavier subjects, so having people under 18 may not be the best. So I can understand getting people that are a few years older, but it does start to get weird when people are in their late 20s playing a teenager, unless they look a bit younger. For example, Riverdale. Right now in the series, they're pretty much the age that the actors actually are. But last year they were playing seniors in high school. So, some of the cast being 25, 26, 27, it's kind of weird, but in the same sense, they kind of looked around that age. I'm 21, so I was a senior in high school in 2018, and there were some kids, that looked older than 18. I'm somebody who looks older than what I am. I've gotten that a lot, so I can kind of see it, but I think my issue is more the way that they made him look with the makeup, and if there was CGI, the CGI, he looked like a terminally sick adult pretending to be a teenager. That was his make-a-wish was I want to go back to high school for a year. So they dressed him up like a teenager and sent him back. I think it's not really the issue of, oh, well, Ben Platt is, an adult, so he shouldn't be doing it. It's just more why do they have him looking like that, playing a teenager?
I will say this. One of the things that I felt is I think I like what you're saying there. One of the things I felt is that he looked like he was up against people that looked like they were teenagers. But he looked older. I just checked their ages.
Just check their ages too, and I'm blown away.
Yeah, Zoe Murphy or Caitlin Dever, who played Zoe, is 25. Connor is 27. The guy who played Jared is 28 years old. He's older than Evan, older than Ben Platt.
There's only 4 years difference between Ben Platt and the actress who played Connor's sister.
That's what I mean.
What did they do to him in makeup? I love
Why
Ben
did
Platt.
they do that to him?
I'm a huge fan. I love him. I listen to the music. I listen to his music outside of Broadway. I watch his music videos, and he does whatever they did to him in this movie. I didn't even recognize him. I'm like, oh, it sounds like him. Because, like, in High School Musical 1, Zac Efron didn't actually sing any of the songs. They had a voiceover. So I was like, oh, maybe they voiced over Ben Platt over this dude. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it is him. And I don't know. Maybe it's makeup and style and hair and whatever, but he did not look well and looked much older. Yeah. Now, if you look at the actress's IMDb photos, she does look quite young. Like, she pulls off the teenager look quite well. But holy moly, it's not a good look.
I like what you said, Steve, about, I think, like, it looks worse because he's in a movie with a lot of people who can pull off a teenager really easily. But one thing that I will also say is the reason that I liked the casting of Ben Platt, regardless of the fact that he looked like a dying grandfather, is the fact that, like, for a lot of people, for the majority of the people who enjoy this musical and are going to see this movie because they saw the musical, Evan Hansen is synonymous with Ben Platt.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would have, although it looks creepy because whether it was makeup or just the fact that he was put against people who look a lot younger than they are, I think that if they were to cast someone else, the movie would have lost some of the sort of, I don't want to say like nostalgia, but kind of like that sort of magic from the original production, just because of how much people relate like Evan Hansen to Ben Platt. So I still think the casting was good to have Ben Platt in there. Just
it's true.
His makeup artist hated Evan Hansen as much as me, so wanted to make him look like a middle-aged man. That's what I actually was Ben Platt's makeup artist. And I specifically made him look disgusting, I tried to give him a mole in the center of the forehead, but the director said that he would fire me.
He did look weathered and depressed, as his character was.
But that might have been what they were going for and just went overboard.
They may have, because it is when we learn that it wasn't actually a fall from a tree, like this person's going through a lot and now they're struggling with the lie. But you're right. He just looked sick, like not sick, but like actually unhealthy.
Looked sick.
He looked sick.
No, not like.
Yeah. See, I think you guys are hitting on it with the makeup, because now I know the other 8 people, the ages. It was just the way that they styled him. And I see what you're saying. Like, okay, honestly, the movie for Wicked has been stuck in development hell for like ever. There is nothing I would love more than Idina Menzel to play Elphaba in the Wicked musical movie. Nothing I would love more. But she probably shouldn't now. She's my age.
Gorgeous. She looks like she's 15.
She
leave her alone.
Does not look like she's 15.
I'm joking.
Like, she's stunning, but the character is supposed to be younger. Like, even
Kristen Chenoweth too couldn't probably do it.
She's in her 50s and she's got a wonderful voice, and I love her, and it would be so beautiful. I don't think they should play them. They're synonymous with the characters for me. I never even saw them on stage. I've seen the play 3 times. I've never seen them once.
Actually, I've never seen Wicked, so
what?
I've never
Get out.
It. No, it is a play I've been trying to go and see, but I can never find the time to go when it's on Mirvish.
It is my favorite play.
Demons take Riley away.
I have seen like so many other musicals. Wicked is just one that I have never been able to go and see.
I can relate to this. I've never seen Phantom of the Opera, which is
that's the first play I saw in grade 8.
It's the first play that everybody saw, especially our age.
Not me.
I missed it. It played for 400 years downtown, and I missed it.
I do think, though, if you think about Ben Platt and Indina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, with those being synonymous, like Riley had said, with those characters, there would be a lot of pressure and judgment on whoever played that role because of that. Like, I'm the type of person where back in the day when Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man and then a new Spider-Man came in, I was like, but Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man. Like, not
and
even
the same thing happened with, like, regardless of whether you like the new Jokers or not, the same thing happened with Joker.
Exactly.
Right? Look at Aladdin.
Yeah.
For crying out loud, I don't know if there are so few characters, animated characters I've seen as synonymous with an actor as Robin Williams as the genie in Aladdin. Like, when you talk about a Disney film, you don't necessarily say, I really, really loved so and so, or except maybe James Earl Jones as Mufasa, maybe. But Robin Williams, people talk about Aladdin, they talk about Robin Williams.
Sorry, you're saying cartoon to synonymous with a voice. I know what you mean, but have you heard the voice of Boots in the live action Dora?
Wait. What?
I'm sorry. In the cartoon, he is this high.
There's a live action?
Yeah. In the cartoon, he has, like, it sounds like there's like a 4-year-old who inhaled helium who is voicing Boots, right? And in the live action, it sounds like he's voiced by, like, Satan. Like, the voice is like a 40-year-old man, and it's deep.
It's Ben Platt.
Ben Platt. He's the voice of Boots. Wow, this took a turn. I didn't really think...
it popped into my head when you said animated voices.
You're thinking, sure.
It is the most ridiculous thing ever. It is hysterical, but it is ridiculous.
But honestly, like, there are certain expectations with famous characters, with famous things. So the fact that Ben Platt was even interested in doing this, and the fact that all these other actors, like, knowing the ages of these other actors, the fact that Ben Platt wanted to hop on and say, this is, I want to do this too. And all these other actors who are close to him in age. When I was watching it too, I thought, man, they're 15 years younger than he is. They aren't. Some of them are older. But it really, like, it makes sense that there are certain expectations in these things you got to pay attention to. Really? Daniel just messaged and said that Ben Platt's dad is the producer of the movie. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was I'm pretty sure it's the producer or one of the producers. But there was, like, a big controversy because everyone was like, that's why he got the role, is because his dad is producing it.
He got the role because he won a Tony for playing the role.
Yeah, and he's a giant in Broadway.
I thought you meant because he was so much taller than everybody.
Yeah, he's 8 foot tall and just crushed everyone. No, he's a giant on his own. And then he also has, the Pitch Perfect movies, which I think is his best roles yet.
Oh my gosh, he's in those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Was he the boyfriend?
No. He was the weird friend.
The dorky magician.
Oh, yes.
The Star Wars roommate.
Yes. Okay. That's hilarious. I totally forgot he was in those. He's a great actor. I like Ben Platt.
Yeah, he's amazing. Do you have something to say?
Excuse me?
Would you like in on this conversation?
As we pause for the cat.
Mo's not the biggest Ben Platt fan because I often sing his songs at the top of my lungs. And although we have the exact same range and pitch, Mo prefers when I don't sing.
You and Mo have the exact same range and pitch?
No, me and Ben Platt.
Oh, sorry.
I sing Ben Platt songs and Mo just wants to kill me.
That's fair.
Excuse me. Pardon. Excuse. Episode.
Well, here, going back to the film for a second, because we could talk about this all night. And I'd like to hear this from all of you, since we sort of talked a little bit about the frustrations with Evan's character, do you consider him the villain of the film or a villain at all in this film?
Riley would never see him as a villain.
Okay. I don't know if you're
He
saying
just
that just to
did
get Riley
stone-
going or
Like stonely anger face.
As much as I would love to say I see Evan as the villain, I don't necessarily, and I can't remember what podcast we were talking about this. Oh, I remember. It was in the Movies You Missed one where the girl who got drugged by her mother. That one. We were talking about this where movies are starting to shift into the villain being an idea rather than a physical thing. And I think although Evan Hansen is a terrible person, and if you could get the death penalty for lying, I think maybe it might be.
Whoa.
But
Wow.
however,
I don't want Riley on any jury that I'm facing.
I do not think he's the villain. I'm joking, by the way. I don't think Ben Platt should die. Please, Ben Platt, don't come to my house, please. I might punch you. Anyways,
this is taking a turn.
No, I don't think he's the villain, though. I think it's the villain of the movie, I think, is sort of this white lie. And although Ben Platt is the one to, I guess you could say, like, execute this white lie, execute this white lie and carry it on throughout the movie, I think it's really the lie that's the villain. And I think that's the thing that they want you to take out of this musical and this movie is the effect that, granted a very big example, but an example of what could happen when a white lie gets out of control. And I think that's the villain of the story, not Evan Hansen.
But wouldn't it be the one who made the lie?
I don't think so.
Okay.
At least not in this scenario. I think in other scenarios, sure, but this one, and I don't remember if someone mentioned it already or if it was someone else that I was talking to about, but the fact that this white lie was at its essence created to try and help someone. So I think that although the lie became the villain, this lie wasn't like created with any malicious intent. It didn't necessarily have quote unquote malicious intent until he started to actually like gain from it and like essentially profit off of it when they started offering him like money and stuff. But I think that the lie became the villain. I don't think it was created by a villain necessarily, if you're following what I'm saying.
I definitely agree. I would also kind of extend it to say, like, the lying, as a whole, could be a villain, but also just like mental illness. I mean, that's, the big part of this movie. It's talked about right from the beginning throughout, the whole film. How mental illness can negatively affect you and affect others is, really like the core of the film. So I'd even kind of push it to say that, mental illness is also the villain. I agree. I don't think it's specifically Evan because, he wasn't lying to hurt the family. But it got out of control and, it became much more than what it should have been. I think, after that first dinner that he had with the family where, he said like, yeah, like, we're kind of friends, like, whatever, he signed my cast. Like that should have been it. As soon as they were like, oh, like, the emails and tell us about the stories you have and everything, all that. That should have been like, you know, we weren't super close. I, you know, seen him a few times in the hall. Like, that's it. It should never have gotten like anywhere past what it was. And honestly, like once it started to, like, you know, I can see getting to a place where you're like, well, I don't, you know, I can't face the family and tell them that I was lying the whole time. Write them a letter. You know, that way you don't have to tell them face to face if that's something, you know, you're anxious about.
You should be pretty adept by this point at writing emails.
Exactly. Like, yeah, like literally just, you know, come clean fully, but do it in a way that, you know, you're sending an email or writing a letter. That way you're still telling them and you can be done with it. But you're also, you know, doing it in a way that you're comfortable with if you don't want to be doing it face to face, because, you know, yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't say that he's specifically the villain. I think it's more like what Riley said, like an idea or not a physical person, which is it's. We talked about it during the Teen Fish episode 4 run, which a lot
Sorry,
of
it was Teen Fish, not movies you missed. I was wondering why Daniel was like yes, and Steve was like mother.
What is this?
What?
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember what movie we
Run?
saw with that.
Yeah.
When you said that description, I was like, that sounds like Run. I think the real villain is the person who decided to cut out a great song and the opening scene of the freaking play when we see Connor interact with his family and sister and get a better idea of what he was going through before he decided to end his life. Why would you put every single part of the play in there except for that first part where the parents are trying to figure out?
They cut like 3 songs, I heard.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just saying that morning where Connor's supposed to be going to school and he is high and just like, I like that song.
That's like, Anybody Got a Mac, right?
Yeah. I sing that song all the time. But I was like, why would you cut that out? That it really just puts like a further pin into who Connor is as a person and who that family is and the pain the family was going through before Connor died.
Yeah, and I agree with you for that specific song. I feel like I didn't even notice what the other songs that they cut from it were, but that one, like, literally in this movie, the first time you meet Connor is 30 seconds before he dies. But when you have that opening song, you sort of know a little bit more about Connor before it gets to that point. So,
and the family was not in a good place, like Connor's family, and that speaks to the sister's reaction to his passing as well. But I was like, that was a weird.
I love that song so much. Can I just say the what is it? Requiem. Oh, I love that song. It's so interesting too. I could have a whole podcast just on the soundtrack.
It is an amazing soundtrack. I think, yeah, I agree with you guys in where the villain might lay and where that might be attached to. Basically, just everything we do affects those around us. Like whether it's mental health or suicide or a little white lie you're trying to get across. Like even the way Evan Hansen treated his mother, who works full-time to support this child whose father abandoned them. And he's like, I wish you were my mother. That really made me mad because I'm like, I guess when you're a teenager, you don't realize what your parents are doing to sacrifice for you. And I guess if we had seen the breakfast scene, we would see that on Connor's side as well. But I don't know. I just singing the whole soundtrack in my head the whole time.
See, it's interesting because one of the things I was considering when I thought about this question of who the villain is, going back to Daniel's comment about mental health, I didn't want to say it was Evan. I think Evan made the wrong choice. And I think Evan made the wrong choice and he continued to make the wrong choices, which you could argue is villainous regardless of intent. He's just continuously, knowingly, he's not making the wrong decisions due to lack of knowledge. He's not
That's
making
my
it by
issue with
mistake.
Evan. That's my issue is
Yeah.
that it's not that he made a wrong decision, because everyone
Sure.
messes up, but it's the fact that after he did, he continued when he knew full well what he was doing.
Yeah, and it escalated very, very quickly. And I know the whole feeling of getting in over your head, and I mean, he's supposed to be like 17 years old, and I have a lot of sympathy for that. And you just sort of like
17 going on 84, you know, like
I am 17 going on 84. Oh, wrong musical.
It's true. But you know, I also think there's an argument to be made that everyone else in the school is a villain. And not because they hopped on the cause, but because it took them so long to do so. And I'm taking, this is a hot take here. I mean, I'm not even saying that I can even really back this up, but nobody noticed Connor until he killed himself. Like, other
Well,
than
they
the
did.
fact,
He was a jerk to some people.
He was a bit of a
but
jerk
they
to
pretty
some
much
people.
ignored him.
like, I think, you know, okay, I haven't seen the play, so I don't know the scene you're talking about, but the fact that I don't really know Connor when he dies is the whole point of the film to me. Is it's like all these other kids are like, oh yeah, let's honor this guy, but they don't even know who they're honoring. I liked how they wrapped it up, and I was really glad that it didn't wrap up with them all hugging Evan at the end, where it's like, hey buddy, it's okay that you lied to millions and millions of people, don't worry about it. They still had there was still some consequences there, but like, the way that Evan did it, speaking to the people that he knew, trying to get to know Connor after his death, was to me the best thing about the movie. I loved that. Everybody else
made that
was on
effort.
board. Yeah, nobody else was making an effort.
he should have done that from the beginning. That even could have been his way of pulling out, being like, I didn't know Kevin, I didn't know Connor all that well. I combined their names,
Kevin
Connor
Costner?
and Evan,
What?
to Kevin. I didn't know Connor that well. Like, he signed my cast, but I can ask around and find out stuff. Like, that could have been his way out.
Was it though, in that when he mailed all of the information to the mom, like?
No, I'm
when
not
he
saying
got-
that was his way out. I'm saying it could have been.
It could have
Riley's
been.
saying if he'd done it earlier, it would have provided.
Yeah,
There's a
true.
lot of things he could have done earlier. How about not making out with his sister?
How about transferring schools?
You know what I thought was interesting about this,
window.
and I don't
Gives
know
a
if
whole
this-
new meaning. He's waving goodbye now.
I don't know if this was in the play, but I really thought it was interesting how he blew up online.
That was in the play, yeah.
That was in the play, okay, because it was like,
Done so well.
yeah, I thought it was done very well, because it's like he's now known around the world.
For a lie.
For a lie. Did you think that they portrayed this conversation around mental health in a positive and healthy way, or did you think that they cheapened it in any sort of way?
I think they spoke about it in a realistic way, actually, because I find when people try and do it in like a positive way, it ends up kind of feeling like washed over in a way, because they're so scared, rightly so, of like quote unquote villainizing mental health, which is a big issue, of course, especially in media. But I think that they did it really well in the fact that they didn't try to make it seem any better or worse than what it is, right? They just sort of like attacked it like head on, in the fact that, like, you know, Evan's medicated, but they're not making it seem like as soon as he got this medication, everything was sunshine and rainbows and dancing. And that's one thing that I really liked. You know, that whole song that he had with the girl who runs the campaign with him, right? Like, I loved that conversation as well. But what I did really like was that they attacked it from a very realistic angle, in my opinion.
I honestly defer to the younger people of the group, because for me, growing up, mental health was not as impacted. I feel like I'll take that back. Not as impacted, but I mean, not as impacted in a social media sense of that constant barrage of what we see today on social media, because I mean, I'm old enough that we didn't have computers. So, but, and it was handled differently in the 80s and 90s, but I mean,
we were just told there were no such thing.
Yeah, exactly. Suck it up. So yeah, I would defer to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with Riley. Like, I think it was definitely a realistic portrayal. I do kind of like that they didn't try to do too much, because there are some like movies, some TV shows where they're like, okay, if we're going to be talking about mental health, we have to talk about everything, so they try to put in so much information and, characteristics, character traits, and different types of mental illnesses that it just becomes so jumbled and, played up or played down that it feels like they're not taking it seriously and it's becoming a joke, or just like something that it's like, okay, do you know what, we have to add in mental health, so let's throw in these characters. Like, it's they're not actually trying to speak about mental illness and mental health. So I think this movie did a good job at kind of doing, in my eyes, kind of like a simple, Evan, we know, has anxiety, has depression. I don't remember what the girl's name was, who did the campaign with Evan, but like, she has anxiety, she has depression. Connor obviously had something, I can't remember if they specifically said, but they weren't trying to throw in like 18 different mental illnesses and trying to talk about all of them all at once and, do everything surrounding everything. It was kind of more of a, we have these couple of ones and we can go deeper into these, 3 or 4 specific ones. That way we can get the most accurate portrayal that we can. And I think they did that pretty well. There were obviously negative situations that occurred with, the mental illnesses in the film, but there were also some positive things that came out of it as well. So I think they did it in a pretty realistic way, and I don't think they did it in, an offensive way or, anything that somebody would be like, yikes, that's not correct, or they did too much, or they didn't do enough. So I think they kind of handled it the best that they could.
Yeah, that was another thing that you kind of reminded me of why I sort of find it realistic, is that in not all, but there are some like movies or TV shows about mental health where it almost feels like they're trying to give every character the most extreme mental health illness that they can think of. And I don't want to say that it's like it's unreasonable, because I people do struggle from those things, and I don't want to make them feel like, it's unreasonable for them to be portrayed in media. But I find that there are some movies where that you'll have one person who's struggling from like schizophrenia, and then another person who has multiple personality, and it feels like they're trying to grab the extremes, and then it's just like, but this one is just kind of like, they're high school kids, right? They have anxieties, they have, a lot of them will have depression as well, and that, and they just sort of kept it at that. Whether there were people who were struggling with more severe ones, who knows, but they just sort of kept it at those 2 kind of realistic ones, and I kind of really like that.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, listening to you guys discuss the differences in how mental health were portrayed, I know this might be off topic, but it's just my own curiosity. Would you say that, that big controversial show, 13 Reasons Why, would you see that show as something that might be on that scale of like overdoing it, whereas Evan Hansen is not, or do you think it's
I put it on a different scale.
Okay.
Because once again, that show, from what I watched of it before I stopped watching it because I thought it was gross after a certain point, was that the mental illnesses that they kept in it more or less were sort of the similar ones in terms of anxiety and depression. But the problem that I had with it was it felt to me like the show was glorifying suicide.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different issue, which does pop up a little bit in this movie, but not in terms of what the movie is about, but in terms of how some of the characters acted. And Steve, you touched on that, of the people who like only seemed to care once Connor killed himself. But in that show, like, it was literally glorifying it, and the fact that, you know, like, she sent out these tapes to be like, here's what you did wrong. This is why it was like, I don't know. It felt like it was glorifying it to a standpoint of being like, it was almost felt like it was revenge instead of mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And that's why I don't like that one. But I'm talking more about like I want to say it, like, it's as if they took the people from like Shutter Island and stuck them into a high school. I'm talking about those shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No, that's awesome. Thanks. I just was thinking like the differences of the portrayal, but that makes sense.
I will say this, Dear Evan Hansen, like, they did a great job at keeping mental illness like on the same level throughout the whole film. In the way that with some movies and some TV shows, they'll throw in a character that'll, you know, come on the scene, be like, you know, hey, I have OCD, and then they'll have like an OCD tendency, and then throughout the series or throughout the rest of the movie, nothing ever happens ever again that would, you know, be an OCD tendency, or it'll never get spoken about ever again. But they threw it in, you know, with this character, you know, whenever they're jumping into the scene their first time, you know, coming on. And there's a lot of, you know, TV shows and movies that do that, where I think more with TV shows because, you know, more episodes, but like, you know, you'll throw in a character who will be like, you know, oh, I have this mental illness. And then they'll display like a few symptoms or tendencies that, you know, happen with the mental illness. And then the other characters will, you know, take notice to that. And then they'll have, you know, some sort of discussion or something to bring awareness to it. And then it'll never happen ever again for the rest of, you know, that episode, that movie, the rest of that season, like whatever it is. So you can tell that with other ones, they do it just as like the, look, we have, you know, mental health, you know, there's mental illness, we're trying to advocate. But this movie actually, you know, we started the movie with, you know, Evan, hey, you know, I have anxiety, I have depression, this is, you know, this is me. We ended off the movie with, I still have it, and you just watched me go through, you know, my whole high school year. And it didn't just like magically go away. Like, they kept it at the same level and talked about it and brought awareness to it throughout the whole film, to where it wasn't just like something thrown in because they had to throw it in.
I have the same type of, and I'm bringing this up because I know we were all in the Movies You Missed podcast, and I know that this was a Movies You Missed podcast this time. I have the same kind of respect for how they portrayed mental health in this movie as to how they did in Perks of Being a Wallflower. I find that they're very similar in the fact that they didn't try to overdo it. They didn't try to just like, you know, like mention it at the beginning and then never again, or make it so unrealistically either good or bad either side. They both kind of just portrayed it, and it was almost as if like mental health, if they didn't mention mental health like specifically out loud, it would just kind of, it would still be there, but it would just be seen as the character, which I like, because a lot of movies will make it like instead of making it like the character has this, the character is then seen as that. And that's when it sort of gets to being this bad representation of mental health. Whereas I found in Perks of Being a Wallflower and Dear Evan Hansen, it was just kind of a fact that these characters had this, and then they just sort of went on their lives having this. And that was it. That was just kind of how they left it. And I find that being very realistic in the fact that they didn't have someone come in to magically cure with a voodoo dance or whatever it is that they do, right? You know, like, yeah, exactly. Like they don't actually do that, but you know, like the magical sort of like, oh, I'm better by the end of this year because such and such happened. They didn't have that. They just sort of, you know, it's a fact. Like, you know, in Perks of Being a Wallflower, he had, you know, anxiety, PTSD and stuff, and he still had that by the end, but he knew how to cope better. And in this movie, I don't think they really talked about him knowing how to cope better by the end, but he still had the same struggles that he had at the beginning because it's just who he is. Like, he just has it, and that's just kind of a fact. And I like that.
Well, there's a good reason for that. There's a great comparison. There's a good reason for that. The director of this wrote and directed Perks of Being a Wallflower. So
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, he did. He wrote the book.
Wow.
I was actually going to bring that up and see if you noticed any similarities. You did my work for me.
I suddenly want to kiss this person. Who made it?
Stephen Chbosky?
Stephen Chbosky.
No.
He deserves a kiss.
There you go. I'm sure he listens. And
or maybe a donut, you know? Boston cream.
You kind of went the other direction there. But okay. He deserves a kiss or a Boston cream donut.
I feel like they're of equal, you know?
Okay. Sure. On that note,
I like Boston cream donuts.
Honey crueler.
All right. All right. Well, this is a great conversation. I do see that we're running out of time. So we should screen it or skip it. Dear Evan Hansen, screen it or skip it?
Screen it or skip it.
Like I've said many times, I think this musical is really good. And I think the fact that I don't like Evan Hansen so much speaks to the fact of how well it is written. It's the same sort of thought that I have with with Professor Umbridge in Harry Potter. The fact that so many people despise her, it shows to how well written that series is. And I think it's the same with this. It was done really well, and I think that's why I dislike him so much, is how well it is done. So I think you should definitely watch it. The soundtrack is incredible. I just hate Evan.
I admit I did not see that coming. Wow. Okay.
No, I really like the musical. My problem is with Evan and Evan alone.
All right. What about you two?
The band?
Did you say ma'am?
I said the band. He said, what about you two?
Oh.
Uh,
That was a dad joke. Way to go.
Chbosky?
Oh gosh.
What's
Locking?
the director's name?
Steven Spielberg.
Shabbat.
Stephen Chbosky.
I will only ever know him as the Boston cream donut of writing and directing.
That's it. That's the takeaway. All right. Awesome. See you next month.
Yeah. Sponsored by Tim Horton.
That's right.
That would be cool.
But dear Evan Hansen, what do you think? Screen it or skip it?
If you can see the play, see the play. I encourage you to see all Broadway plays. But I would screen it 100% because I love the score and everything about this movie, with the caveat that you have an official warning about Ben Platt and the waxy Ben Platt mask that he wears for the entire movie.
The Michael Myers mask he was wearing.
Yeah. It was good.
He's a serial killer now. Evan Hansen is a serial killer.
A singing serial killer. We haven't had one.
Yeah, that's Evan Hansen too. And at the end, he writes another letter to himself, and everyone forgives him.
True.
Screen it.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I agree. The stories, it's a very entertaining story. And it was written really well. The script was done really well. The music was good. I haven't seen the play, so I had nothing to like compare it to, or musical.
So uncultured.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was done really well. So, okay. So yeah, screen it from me too.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love it. I did think the soundtrack was great. I think that
okay, never mind. You can stay.
I did think the soundtrack was great and performed well. I don't know. There was something about it. It didn't totally grab me. The performances were fine. It is possible that whatever that happened with his makeup was just jarring enough to pull me out of it. I don't really know. So I wouldn't say run out to the theater and see it.
No, it's a rental.
Yeah, I would almost I don't think it's a skip it for me. Like, it's not bad.
That's fair, but I felt the same way about the play, as I do really like this play. It the movie, and because Ben Platt is kind of off-putting in it, regardless of the fact that I do think he was still the good pick for it. He was very unsettling. But even with the play, as much as I love the score, this has never even been, I think, in my top 3. It's good. It is, and you should see it. But it's never been one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think I would land on sort of a mediocre stream it on this one. If and when it pops onto Netflix, I think there's something to see. I think it's enjoyable.
Listen to the soundtrack, memorize it, and then when you watch it, put on subtitles and sing along.
Yeah, I didn't feel like this had I know some people that would feel like this is an event. It didn't feel like an event film to me. Maybe I just didn't connect with the story in the same way, but I thought it was well done, but not enough for me to say screen it. I think it's fine if you want to see it later, but you don't need to right now.
Anyone who is debating seeing this for the first time and for whatever reason listening to my review of it not being my favorite, for reference, my favorite musical is Rocky Horror. So I think that goes to show what kind of musicals I like. So you might enjoy it.
Wait, we didn't watch. This wasn't Rocky Horror?
The score is amazing. Rocky Horror.
I love Rocky Horror. It's my favorite musical. It's so much fun.
I've never seen it.
Me neither.
Oh my gosh. I need to take Daniel specifically. I need to take you.
Down to see it.
You don't want to get Steve in his fishnets and take him with you?
I would pay to see Steve dress up as Frankenfurter.
Well, it's been fun this week, everybody.
I've seen the Glee episode version.
Tune in next week for Steve in his corset and fishnets.
In my fishnets. No, seriously, everybody, thank you so much. This has been fun. It's a great conversation, and I love chatting with you guys. I very much do, even when it ends with me in fishnets. I appreciate that. And for you at home, a reminder that if you go and find us on iTunes or Google Podcasts or any of these places, Podomatic, that actually we have an interview with Stephen Chbosky on there right now that you can listen to as well. We will be back next week, and we're excited. Hope you join us with that. But thank you to you all for joining us, and for you at home. We started the conversation. This was Screenfish.
Fade out music.